everybody. This is Rihanna Werner here with HR Branches. Thanks for joining us for a special interview with our friend and one of the most brilliant, bright community small business experts and advisors that I've ever met. Heather and I had the opportunity of attending a class over the summer together, and well, let's just put it bluntly, we found out we're kindred spirits. We geek out over business, and we have a huge heart for small business. Both of us have built businesses that support small businesses, and Heather knows insurance, commercial lines of insurance inside and out. And so today, Heather is going to take time out of her busy schedule and help all of us understand insurance as well as our risk and liabilities in these turbulent times of COVID-19 and how we can best protect ourselves as small business owners. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you guys to my good friend, Heather McBroom. Heather, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Well, thanks for making the time to help the HR Branches community as well as the Colorado Springs community out in understanding all of the complexities of insurance and how it applies to the situation that we're looking at today. Do you want to give a brief intro of who you are and what you do over at Precision?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the owner of Precision Services. We have a couple of different companies underneath that umbrella. One is Precision Insurance, which I am an insurance agent, have been for the last 22 years. We specialize in commercial insurance, any type of insurance for your business, that's our specialty. We also have an in-house company that does bookkeeping and payroll services for our insurance clients, as well as a variety of other services to help our clients, whether it's needs for legal protection for their business, registering their companies, VA services, and stuff like that.
You are one busy woman. How do you do?
Yes, I am. I have no other way, though.
Impressive. All right, Heather, let's just go ahead and jump right into this. I know I have received a huge amount of client questions in regards to insurance and liability. And so just so our community can take quick inventory of their current policies and what they need, can you help these small business owners understand what policies they should already have in place?
Yes, absolutely. So first off, just to say, there is really no cookie cutter approach to insurance. Everybody's business is an individual business with its own risks and its own needs for insurance. So that's very important to say that, you really should be working with an insurance agent who specializes in commercial, understands proper risk management, and can really look at your business and tailor your policy to fit your needs. The most important, or probably the most common insurance that we see people carry, is what we call general liability insurance. And general liability insurance is property damage or bodily injury caused to a third party while you're doing what you do. So it is recommended that every business carry at least a basic general liability policy. And those can range in price from anywhere from $400 a year all the way up to $20,000 a year, depending on what you do, what your operations are, how big your operations are. Often they're based off of gross sales or payroll. So they vary all over the place. There's also multiple carriers out there. So having an agent that can shop multiple markets may be important to make sure that you have the right coverages at pricing that's affordable for you and your business. People who offer a professional service, maybe such as bookkeepers, insurance agents, what you guys do over at HR Branches, we need to carry something called professional liability insurance. Now, this isn't meant to be a replacement for your general liability, but it's usually meant to be in combination with. So you try to find a policy that will do both together. But professional liability is when your client suffers more of a financial harm. We have provided a professional service, maybe that didn't work out that way, or they came back and said, hey, I want my money back. This isn't what I expected. Those are professional liability claims. And the reason why it's important to have both is because your policy covers the claims, but it also covers defense costs if you were sued. So if you got sued for a property damage claim, but you didn't carry general liability insurance, then you would have no defense coverage either. Same goes for the professional liability. If you were sued for a financial harm, but you only carried general liability insurance, you wouldn't have that coverage as well, or that defense coverage as well. So important to know what your exposure is and have the right policy in place for those. Neither one of those policies we discussed talk about a property coverage of any kind. So depending on your operations, you may need coverage for a building that your business owns. You may need coverage for the inventory or the business personal property that you have within your business. You may need business coverage for tools and equipment that you have out in the field when you're doing work. A lot of construction workers need coverage for those types of things. So you have to look at the property component as well and see what your risk is and what needs to be covered on that side. Sometimes that can be bundled in with your general liability. Sometimes you need a separate policy. So again, that understanding and knowledge from your agent's really important to make sure that you get everything that you need to have covered in a way that makes sense and is easy to afford as possible. The only other one is probably the most important and definitely the one that is required by law is workers' comp insurance. So as soon as you hire an employee, before they sit down at that desk for their first day at work, you need to make sure that you have them covered on a workers' comp policy. That covers the medical and wage loss if they're injured while they're on the job. So really important to have, and as like I said, that's required by law. Now, I'm not going to go into the other multiple lines, but there are several depending on your risk. We have cyber insurance, we have crime liability insurance, we have umbrella policies, we have commercial auto policies, we have employer's liability insurance. So there are tons of lines of coverage that you may need for your business, but those are conversations that should be happening with your agent at the time that you're asking for a quote.
It is so important to have a good agent by your side. And I think you just demonstrated this here in the fact that it is so complex and every business is so different that there is no boilerplate and you do have to talk to an expert about this. So hopefully at least, Colorado Springs small business community, you can at least start taking inventory of your policies. But as you're taking inventory of your policies, now is the time to review your policies. Heather, as they're pulling these policies and they're reviewing them, what should they be looking for in light of today's unusual environment?
So not just in particular for what's going on today, but things that you should always be looking at. Making sure that the named insured on the policy is correct. Is that truly your legal entity name? I see policies written all the time that might be written under the DBA, but not the parent company name, or it might be spelled incorrectly, or it might be under the person's name instead of the business name. So making sure that that named insured information is correct is important for legality reasons and if you have a claim. So checking that information every time you either start a new policy or your renewal comes is important. Making sure the address information is correct. A lot of times your coverage applies to specific premises. Well, if you've moved and you didn't change that address, that coverage may not go to the new location with you, or if it does, it may be limited for a period of time. So making sure that that information is always correct on your policy. Your policies will have a classification listed. Review that. Is that really what you do? Does that classification cover everything that you're doing as a business? And does your policy have a form on it that says it's limited to that description? Because, for example, if I have a painter who comes in to get a painting policy and 6 months down the line, he decides to start doing roofing, but doesn't tell me, and that policy is limited to painting, he now has no coverage for the roofing jobs that he's taking on. So the business description is very important to know that it's the correct description for what you're doing. And if you have questions that what you see on there makes sense, then reach out to your agent and double check and make sure that it is written correctly, because that'll be very important if you have a claim. Double checking how your policy is rated. And all of this information can just be found on the declarations page. You don't have to be a insurance 101 specialist. You don't have to understand the lingo. I tell my clients, just look at the declarations page. You're going to see all the basic information, and then you're going to see a list of forms that are attached. So if anything in that form list causes you to be concerned or you want to know what it means, certainly don't try to read through and figure it out yourself. We spend many years in education and continued education being able to decipher these policies. So those are just questions for your agent. Hey, I saw this form's listed. I'm not sure what that means, or it sounds like it may be detrimental to what I do. A good example is an excavation company that has an earth movement exclusion. Certainly that sounds very odd. They are moving earth. So those are questions they'd want to ask their agent. What does that mean exactly? Is that a problem? And understanding that after you've looked at your basic, oh, I'm sorry, let me back up. In addition to the classification, you will see next to it how it's rated. And that's really important to know how your policy is rated. Is it rated off of gross sales? Is it rated off of payroll? Is it rated off of your area, your square footage of your building? If it's rated off of gross sales or payroll, is that figure accurate? Because you will be audited at the end of the year. So keeping tabs on that and where your business is financially may be important for you to avoid having a huge audit bill at the end of the year. So maintaining, the knowledge of what's on there and keeping that updated is important as well, because we guesstimate those numbers for the upcoming year. For some of us, we could have an amazing year and be completely off and sometimes double what we originally paid for that policy the following year. And that can be really tough for small businesses. So we really try to work with them and say, write this number down every 3 months on your calendar, so it reminds you to review your actual numbers compared to what you guessed and make sure you're staying on track. After you've looked at that piece, you'll have a page that has just a list of forms. That's when I told you, if you see anything and it sounds strange, that's when you reach out to your agent and say, I don't know what this is. Can you explain this better? Or, is this a problem?
Whew. Okay. It's really good information. And I feel like this is great, just, commercial insurance 101. So, and we all could probably use this foundational reminder. So thank you so much. Now, let's get into COVID specific. How does COVID play into this whole wicked web of insurance? And is there any protection for small businesses out there for us?
That is a great question. And certainly with everything going on, a lot of us having to close our businesses down, lay off employees, and the uncertainty of even what's going to happen in the future, having to leave our brick and mortar shops unattended, what could possibly happen there. There's definitely a lot of concern. So let's talk first about COVID-19 itself and what it is. So COVID-19 being a virus that has been introduced into our community is not something that you would typically see insurance coverage for. So going back to the different types of policies we talked about, let's first talk about general liability insurance. If you remember, we said that's a coverage that is bodily injury or property damage to a third party while doing what you do. So COVID-19 is not going to cause any property damage to anybody, but let's say you're infected, you're out and you're doing your job, seeing your clients, doing whatever, unaware that you were affected, and you get a bunch of people sick. That could potentially be bodily injury to a third party while you were doing your job. The problem is general liability policies are built in with an exclusion. An exclusion is a term that means something not covered, but there is an exclusion for communicable diseases and viruses. So because of this, There's not going to be any response on your general liability policy if you did cause bodily injury, as well as if you were to get sued by somebody, it's also not going to cover your defense cost in that area. So this is where I tell my clients, risk management wise, be aware. If your employees are sick, if you are sick and don't feel well, don't continue to go out and see your clients. Don't take the chance of exposing people. Just because your insurance policy doesn't cover it doesn't mean the risk is not still there. So you need to make sure that you're thinking through things very carefully. We know we live in a litigious society, and so to avoid possibly having anybody say that you weren't acting in their best interest and caused, them to get it, you want to be very conscious of that. The second coverage that is the most popular one is business interruption insurance. So everybody is calling to say, hey, I have business interruption insurance. Is it going to respond? So business interruption insurance is a coverage that is tied to a property coverage. So on your general liability policy itself, you don't have business interruption. Those people that have it have some sort of property coverage, whether it's a commercial building or their business personal property or inland marine. Maybe they have tools and equipment. They may have a business income or business interruption attached to that. But because it is a property extension of coverage, it is only triggered by a property loss. So what that looks like is, let's say I have a policy and the policy has what we call covered perils, and it may list it on there. It may say, you have fire, you have wind and hail, whatever the covered perils are on your policy. If one of those cause a property loss, for example, a fire started, my brick and mortar shop gets burned to the ground, I no longer can do business. I have to find a new location. We're shut down for a period of time. My business interruption will kick in and pay me for that loss of income. But without a property damage to initiate that coverage, that particular coverage will not even respond. So in the case of the COVID-19, there is no coverage for business interruption because there is nothing that this disease can cause the property loss associated with it for. The last piece is the workers' comp. So workers' comp insurance is to cover your employees if they are injured or get sick on the job. So obviously, as employers, some of us are saying, hey, well, our employees got sick. We think that they might have been exposed by a coworker or maybe a client or somebody of that nature. The difference is workers' comp insurance is meant to cover people who get sick because of some exposure on the job, not an exposure to other people, but an exposure to the occupation and the work that's actually being performed for the job. So in the instance of most of us, the workers' comp insurance is not going to help with testing. It's not going to help with time off of work. It's not going to help with doctor bills associated for your employees that do contract the COVID-19 or even get tested for it. The couple rare exclusions that we're seeing currently are for our first responders and for our medical personnel. These are people who are being exposed to the disease as a form of their job. And so with that increased risk of being exposed as a part of their job, they will actually have some coverage under their work comp policies. But so far, those are the only two industries that these insurance carriers have come out and said, those are ones that are exempt and they will give some coverage to.
Well, gosh, you don't have great news for us right now, unfortunately.
I do not. No.
It's hard to be the bearer of bad news, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, we're all going to suffer a loss in this. And I think it's important to band together as a community, as a small business community, and really just try to help each other out as much as possible. Nobody wants to hear that you're paying for insurance and the insurance isn't going to pay out in certain circumstances, but insurance is still there for catastrophes. It is still there and covers you for many things. And sometimes, insurance will evolve. Insurance always revolves when something happens. So there's a good chance coming down the line that maybe they would offer for an additional premium to cover communicable diseases or something along those lines. The forms are constantly changing, or it may go the other direction and they may say that's not what we want to do. But you got to keep in mind that insurance rates are based off of the exposure and risk. So if they are going to add more exposure and risk, we're going to see increases in premium, which right now we're hitting a hard market, and that's going to be already the premium increases and the non-renewals people are seeing are already causing problems. So I'm not sure that this is something we want them to address per se, but I'm sure something will come down the line in either the form of additional coverage you can purchase or an exclusion on the policy to really clarify for us if this happens again, what would happen.
I think it's funny, a year ago, if my insurance broker would have asked me, hey, do you want a communicable disease rider attached to your policies? I probably would have been like, psh, no, who
Exactly.
needs that? We haven't seen anything since like the Spanish flu. I'm good. Right?
That's right.
And then now we're all like, holy macaroni, I think I might need something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So
It's hard to
I don't
prepare for
even think I would
things.
have had the conversation of, do you want this covered? It was just never in any of the forefront of our minds as we maneuver through business. And
That's
here
right.
we are. It's always the unexpected, right?
It is always.
So, okay, in light of the very few coverage options that we see here, what can we do as business owners to protect ourselves?
I'm not sure that like you said, there's a lot of unexpected. So this was unexpected. I don't know that we could have truly protected ourselves from it. Certainly, as small businesses, we're learning from it, which typically is what happens. So we're putting things into place like, being able to work from home and having policies to work from home, having kind of those disaster plans in place. I personally, I have a brick and mortar shop. So we had to shut up shop and move a lot of things home. So we had to decide what kind of things stay in the office, what kind of things do we take home. If we're looking at possibly, being sent home and everybody having to stay in the house, like California just experienced yesterday, then, we want to make sure our stuff in our office is safe. So we removed computers, we removed high dollar value items, and we inventoried with video all the things that we're leaving behind. We have no idea how far this is going to go and what's going to happen. So you just do the best you can to, one, mitigate risk by having a good commercial insurance agent, making sure you have the right coverages in place, two, inventorying everything that you can, and keeping things safe, keeping all of your data and information backed up on an external hard drive that you can take out of the location with you, minimizing risk with your employees as much as possible, doing some of the layoff options that we've talked about to try to keep your business in place during this period of time. And really, again, none of us have a crystal ball. So do the best you can. Work with professionals you trust in all the industries for HR related stuff, for insurance related stuff. Make sure that you have a good team of people that you can rely on and talk to at any time to answer your questions and to help you think through some of these things just to prepare the best that you can.
As our small business owner community is maneuvering through this, I'm sure, you mentioned having a great insurance broker on your side. As they're communicating with their insurance broker, what are some of the essential questions they should be asking of their broker right now during this period?
I'm not sure exactly what kind of responses people are getting or what questions they're asking. I mean, obviously, a lot are asking about the business interruption coverage and finding out that this isn't tailored to respond to an incident like this. But I would say, first and foremost, make sure that your agent is not just asking a few basic questions, that they know about you and your operations as a whole. If you have a location, they should be coming to you to see the risk, to see the stuff, because again, you're not the insurance expert. I may walk into your shop and say, wow, that's a really expensive piece of equipment over there that I know we don't have on the policy. Let's talk about that. Or things like that. So they should be very involved at least once a year. If you're not hearing from your agent at renewal time, that's a red flag. they should be communicating with you, going over your numbers of, what your policy is rated off of, projections for the following year, double checking to make sure we don't have a significant increase in business property or exposure in employees and that kind of stuff. So really, again, it's all tailored differently, but knowing that you have good conversations with your agent every year. I don't care if you're the little guy. I don't care if have a small landscaping company. Those guys may be doing, things like snow removal in the winter and other things that we need to talk about, because carriers are constantly changing, and making sure that we can make sure you can remain covered correctly is really important.
I agree wholeheartedly. You definitely do have to have a really good understanding of someone's business in order to properly cover them. And Heather, thank you so much for this helpful information. Before I let you get off the line, I just want to get your opinion and your input so we can start looking forward beyond all of this. What do you see coming down the road as far as insurance, and what do you think the future holds? You already said the insurance industry, anytime they see something like this, they grow in it, they adapt. How do you think they'll grow and adapt?
Honestly, I think that due to the nature of the sensitivity of what's happened, not yet seeing the full economic impact it's going to have for us as a nation, I think that they would probably come up with some ideas of how to cover this in the future. Honestly, most of the time, insurance carriers are not going to shy away from some of the stuff. They want to be there for people. That the point of insurance is that when there is a catastrophe, you hope that it's there to respond. So I think going forward, they might look at some different policy language that they could put in there, and try. They're going to struggle with keeping it affordable and expanding coverage for sure. But I think that they're going to err on the side of making some sort of coverage available in the future.
That makes sense. I hope that's the case. But I have
Me
no
too.
doubt it probably will be. It's a new product line, right?
That's right. Another long to
I
sell.
know, right? That's what we do. We grow and adapt and offer new products to meet the needs of the climate. So, Heather, thank you so much. Is there anything else our viewers need to know about our current situation and insurance that we haven't discussed yet?
I don't think so, but I will tell you, obviously with anything going on right now, things are constantly changing. So we work very hard to keep our clients up to date. Anyone is welcome to follow us on our Facebook page. Just search for Precision Services Colorado. Follow and like us. We will keep you updated as things change, not only in the insurance industry, but in a bunch of industries in general. We have a lot of connections in the community, so we like to share that information to our customers and our friends. So that's a really good way to kind of follow along. We also offer a completely free review of your policy. It is not meant to get you in and sell you on a different policy. It's to make sure that you are covered correctly. So we'll do a quick look at it with you, point out the things that you need to be looking at and keep an eye on, and make sure that some of those things make sense. And if things don't, we'll give you a list of questions to ask your agent, because we want people to be covered correctly.
Heather, I take great pride in the fact that HR Branches only partners and works with the best out there. And you, my friend, are one of the best out there. And I am so blessed and honored to call you a friend and a partner and a small business community leader. I mean, you're just an outstanding resource, and you just lead the charge in everything great that's happening in the small business environment right now. So thank you. To all of you viewers, if you want to have your policy reviewed by Heather, which I do recommend, or need help in your insurance needs, please contact Heather immediately. She is, as I mentioned, the best of the best and the brightest of the brightest. And so you won't go wrong without her. Heather, can you do me a favor and tell everybody how to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. You can call our office at 719-210-0121, or you can email us at insurance@psicolorado.com. That phone number also accepts text message. If you prefer to text, you're welcome to do that as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. As everybody knows, I'm Rihanna Werner with HR Branches, helping you with all of your foundational employee needs. Today and tomorrow it's going to be, we're in difficult times and they're not very easy, but we are dedicated to keeping you not only abreast, but ahead of the information and looking down the pipeline to see what's coming our way. And this conversation here with Heather is just another way to help you continue moving forward during these uncertain times. If you have any comments, feedbacks, or questions for Heather, you can always leave them in the comments below. We will be happy to address them, or forward your questions over to Heather and she can address them. I'm sure she'll be poking into our Facebook page and checking it out anyway, too. She's got to double check my work, right?
Well, I just love to follow you because you also are amazing. And so I appreciate all your stuff as well.
Oh, thank you. We could sit here and pat each other's backs all day.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you. And everybody, thanks for watching. Until next time, we're going to keep the information flowing your way. Take care.